Japan, games, toys, geek out gaijin.
Yeah, welcome back to Geek Out Gaijin, and it's been a while. And I would just like to follow up on some things that I would like you guys to know, or some things that you are curious about because you want to collect Japanese video games, or you're planning a trip to Japan, you want to buy some stuff, but you're searching for information in regards to things you should know about before you're gonna go ahead and purchase things that you should be taking home, or you are even considering buying from Japanese websites some video games or some exclusive merch related to video games, like sites like Surugaya, maybe a Japanese Square e-store, the Nintendo shop, or and other various things. So this video is here to give as much information as I can to you guys before you go ahead and purchase some of these Japanese video games. Anyway, I am your Pinoy otaku in Japan but not in Tokyo, Hage Potato, and these are the 10 things you should know before you start collecting Japanese video games. So starting off, our list is region locking, and I think this is one of the most important things that you should know. So for number 10, this is not necessarily the least informative thing you should know. I just listed these things as I go along. But at number 10, region locking is something that you should prioritize knowing about, because not all of the games, especially the retro side, not all of this are compatible with the US and Europe version consoles. So for retro games, there are different kinds of region locking for this consoles, and most of this are physical region lock. So what I mean by that is, as you have noticed, NES and Famicom cartridges, the carts have different sizes on them, and that is simply because their construction is physically different for you, because back then the system, the AI, especially for retro AI, what am I talking about? Anyway, the cartridges, and we have here sample. See, so this is one of the earlier forms of region locking. So they are physically region locked, and what I mean by that is, a Famicom game ain't gonna enter an NES console, and an NES console won't be able to fit properly with your Famicom device, your Famicom console. And there are ways to get around this, but most of them are physically modifying the consoles. But some games have an adapter. I just don't have it out here with me right now, but anyway, they have an adapter especially for the Super Famicom and the Super NES, and you could just use that to properly convert or use your Japanese cartridge on your NES, or your Super NES, and your Super NES cartridge on a Super Famicom console. But overall, there's a lot more detailed ways to check out in regards to the physical region locking. But for newer games, there are let's see, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 are region free, except for some select games on the PlayStation 3. On the PlayStation 3 is Persona 4 Arena Ultimax and Joy Sound. So those two games are region locked to the Japanese system. So if you plan to play those games, you might want to consider buying their respective consoles. And also for Nintendo Switch is the only true Nintendo console that is region free, with the exception on their handheld sides. So you have the Nintendo DS, which is region free, but then you go to the 3DS, it's region locked. So for the Nintendo side, it's only Nintendo DS and the Switch that are region free. For the PlayStation side, it's PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation. For the Xbox side, I can't confirm this, but my Japanese games and my R1, R2 games are compatible with my Xbox Series X. So I do hope somebody who's an expert on the Xbox side can possibly confirm this. But overall, that's the gist of region lock for video games. Just keep in mind, the older the video game system, most likely region lock. So anything on the PlayStation 2 and below era, do think that is region lock. The only exception would be Nintendo DS. Just just putting it out there is something that you should know before you start collecting Japanese video games, because you might really want to consider getting a Japanese console unless you're planning on doing some modifications on it, and that's a whole other subject. Anyway, let's move on to number 9, which is, as we have already talked about region locking, let's talk about account compatibility. For this is more on the newer consoles, so starting on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, the Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X. So there are some things, there's a news right now wherein they are locking Xbox is locking other people from going to the Turkey and Argentina stores. I think PlayStation is following suit. Anyway, this I just mentioned this because it's somewhat related to the account compatibility for our top 9 on our number 9 on the list. But anyway, if you buy a Japanese console, PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, your US your R1 account, your R2 account, you would be able to log into these systems and use those systems, and the language for the language settings for these consoles could be turned to English. So I have a Japanese PlayStation 3, a Japanese PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, a Nintendo Switch, actually 2 Nintendo Switches, and I was able to log in my my primary account, my US account into these systems, and I was able to use this playing my US game. So absolutely no problems with that. And I could access the US store and the Japanese e-store. So I'm a little bit worried about this whole debacle regarding the geo locks on various e-stores. Anyway, so you could buy with confidence that if you're planning on using your main accounts, you're gonna buy a Japanese Switch, PS3, 4, 5, Xbox Series S, you could actually just go ahead and buy these consoles and you'll be able to use your account. So that's for number 9. Anyway, let's move on to another subject. So let's move on to number 8, which is voltage. So most retro gamers know about this, and the Japanese voltage is universally 100 volts. If you have 220 volts and other other voltages and in your country, you might want to consider using a power surge protector or a converter, because if you plug in a Japanese system without any protection onto your power outlet, there's gonna be some repercussions. And please do be careful on this one, because I might be in a joyful tone, but this is really serious. So please do consider checking out the voltage. So just a quick number 8, but still very important, and I do want you guys to really consider this. So voltage difference, 100 volts for Japan, so if you're planning on buying any consoles on it. So moving on to our number 7. So number 7 is language support. So most of you guys may have found this channel through my full English language guides for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5. So for those who don't and you're just watching this video in regards to this, do know that most of the modern games have full English language support. So you might want to check out the channel for the guides that I have made for the Switch, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. But I'm gonna give a quick summary on titles that you might want to stray away from if you don't if you're not knowledgeable in the Japanese language. So Gus, Marvelous, Atlus, most of the Japanese JRPG developers do not have their games with full English language support, with the exception of Square Enix. But not all Square Enix games have full English language support, but most of their main titles have it. The Final Fantasy remakes, the recent releases have the full English language support. Some other games, so just check my guide out if you want to get more specifics. But PlayStation 3 and upwards have been more lenient in giving full English language support in the Japanese releases, and that is the reason why I have a lot of Japanese titles in my collection, because they have full English language support and I'm not really fluent in understanding the Japanese language. So for me to be able to enjoy a video game, it has to have English on it, and this is my secondary language and the language that I use whenever I'm playing video games, and that's how I'm able to understand and enjoy my video games. So that's it for the English, the number 7, the language options. I just wanted you to know that modern consoles, modern console releases have been more lenient with the language supports. But that is not to say there are some retro games that actually have the support, like for the Super Famicom, their Super Metroid. I was pleasantly surprised that it's actually, and I'm not really that strict when it comes to the retro side, because since I'm a Filipino, I lived in the Philippines during the 90s, and most of the video games that we were playing, especially on rental shops, are Japanese versions. We don't know the language, but for retro video games, it's not really that big of a deal, because you would be able to play most of the arcade type titles without really understanding the language, especially fighting games, shoot 'em ups, beat 'em ups, side scrollers, because those are the main things during those days. But some JRPGs do, retro JRPGs do have full English language support. Like for example, Final Fantasy X international version. Do not confuse it with the regular version. Only the international version has full English language support. Anyway, I'm gonna cut it down for this number, since I do have guides for this. Anyway, let's go to number 6, which is the spines, or more specifically the rating system for Japanese video games. They have the zero rating, so it goes from A, which is the kid friendly game, so that's E for everyone. B is for 13 and up, so that is for maybe pre-adolescent. And we have C for teens, and their mature rating is actually divided into 2 categories. It's D and SED, or say version. So D is more on sexual innuendo, sexual reference, and say or said is more on the graphical style. So there's a really huge difference in censorship with the West and Japanese, the Japanese side. The Japanese video games tend to censor Western titles more, like Baldur's Gate and Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, just prime examples that I want like to specifically give focus on, because these are heavily censored games, and I got the Japanese versions, and for me, I don't really mind this, because I'm not there for the uncensored BT bits, and I'm just there to enjoy the game. I got the Japanese version, so it's more covered on what if if the US versions are exposed, the Japanese versions have like bondage on the private parts and a leaf cover on Baldur's Gate 3 on the private parts anyway. Um since so for spines it's uh a little bit uh OC inducing for the modern titles because they do have this color coded bottom part on their spines, and most of them are written on kanji, hiragana, and katakana, so it's a little bit hard to display them with their spines on the side. But what I did is color coding so that it looks a little bit better. But one thing I do want to give your attention to is on the jewel cases. This might be something that not most people are familiar with, but for great number of the retro CDs, the retro video games in CD format and jewel cases have the option for you to have the English English titles written on there so that it's a bit easier for you to see. And if you would just turn to the other side, so their primary side, it has them the Japanese language written on there, but if you turn them around into the other three, turn them around 360, you would be able to find that some of this most of these styles actually have English written on there. So that's for PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn. So the jewel case releases for consoles. So something you might want to know, and it's something that I was really pleasantly happy to have figured out because I was able to find them more quickly than the ones in the DVD cases for PlayStation 2 and upward. So anyway, that's it for the spines, and let's move on to our number 5 on the list. It's alternate cover. So this is a little bit the quick thing that I would like to point out. As you would want to check here, I have here the Infamous, and I have here Uncharted 2. So some of the Japanese video game artworks, I don't want to use the word better, but I would like to use the word I prefer these covers more than their US counterparts. So there are some rare cases where the Japanese art style are much different than what was released in the West. And I think good example for this that every most gamers know is the Mega Man and Rockman difference for their artworks. So I personally prefer the Rockman artwork, the Japanese artwork. This is what I grew up in. This is what got me into Rockman. And the Mega Man old man dude carrying a gun artwork just does not work for me. So yeah, so different artworks and different one of the reasons why you might want to consider buying a Japanese video game or double dipping on it is if you want to display this. And I think for most of us, it's this is one of the reasons why we do buy Japanese video games. It's the artwork, the how we would want to display them. Getting past that, there's not a lot, but it is very significant of a difference to be able to simply check them out and do search them out. Number 4 is shops. So just a huge quick shout out on in regards to shops, and this is mainly focused on the ones that are gonna be visiting or planning on visiting Japan. So everybody knows Akihabara, the mecca for all of us weebs, otakus, nerds, geeks, dorks, and everybody who loves video games, anime, manga, Japanese culture, would definitely want to visit Akihabara. But if you do have time, you do have spare time on your, I believe you have really tight schedules when you're planning on visiting Japan and planning your trip here. Do consider checking out or moving away, further away from Akihabara. Maybe checking out book of hard ops in Yokohama, the nearby areas. And if you have more free time, do venture out into Saitama or even here in Gunma, because the price difference and the availability of certain finds unpredictable. So if you venture out, you might discover far cheaper video games and far rarer things that you might be looking for. So anyway, I just wanna list here some stuff that are already considered as common knowledge for people, but I'm still gonna mention it here. So video games, you got Traders, Friends, Surugaya, and other stuff. You have Mandarake for really rare stuff that you just might want to check out and see for yourself, but I don't really recommend buying from this. Is Super Potato. So many rare stuff on that store, but really pricey. And everybody knows the book ops and the hard ops. So those are the shops that you might want to consider checking out. And if you do find yourself here in Gunma, do check out Monday Shoten. It's an awesome place, and I do go there weekly, mostly on Fridays, Saturdays. Sometimes I go visit it at 3 days in a row on the weekends. That's how much I love the place. Anyway, so that's it for the shops, and let's move on to number 3. So backwards compatibility. I have lightly talked about this earlier, but I just wanted to give it more attention on our number 3. And Xbox Series X has no problems with backwards compatibility, with the exception of some titles they no longer they have some license issues. So but most games on the Xbox Series X predecessor, so Xbox 360, Xbox One, do work with the Xbox Series X. Same thing for the US, same thing for the Japanese version. But with the exception of some titles may not work because of licensing issues. So check out the website, the compatibility website for Xbox first before you go and buy a Japanese video game that you intend to play. So an example for this is Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the Japanese version for the Xbox. The OG Xbox does not work with the Xbox Series X. So one of my experiences on that, just wanted to let you guys know. So do check out their website first. So moving into the PlayStation side, actually backwards compatibility is the same with the West. So just really want to touch upon this before you start buying Japanese video games. So for PlayStation 1 games do work with the PlayStation 2. I'm not sure if all of them, but most of the titles that I have bought for the PlayStation 1 work with my PlayStation 2. And for the PlayStation 3, it has backwards compatibility, but it's the OG PlayStation 3, the first release with a very specific serial number. So if you're planning on getting a PlayStation 3 to play, to have backwards compatibility with PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games, I do recommend really checking out which model it is, and if you might find that it's gonna be really expensive. So just go get a PlayStation 1 or a PlayStation 2 to play PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. And I do not really recommend getting that specific PlayStation 3 model unless you're a really huge collector for PlayStation and you're really searching for it. But I really do not recommend it those who are just getting into the hobby. And anyway, so that's it for the PlayStation side of backwards compatibility. PlayStation 4 not compatible, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 5 is compatible with PlayStation 4 titles. So for Nintendo, it's the only one with the ones with backwards compatibility are this a little bit complicated. So Famicom games only work with Famicom titles. Super Famicom consoles only work with Super Famicom games. N64 games only work with N64 games. GameCube games only work with GameCube games, but they would also work with GameCube advanced games if you have the adapter, which is very expensive. Wii games work with GameCube titles, same as Wii. I never owned the Wii U, so I'm not knowledgeable with that particular console. But the Switch only works with Switch games, and 3DS works with Nintendo DS. So yeah, so a little bit complicated on the Nintendo side, but that's the gist of it. And oh yeah, Famicom disc games only work with the Famicom disc. Okay, I think I covered most of them, and if I didn't, do comment down below which ones I miss. So anyway, let's get on with number 2 on our list is the Japanese exclusive versions, collector's editions. And this is actually connected with a little bit connected with what I was saying earlier with in regards to full English language support, since I have already covered that. So we are here with Japanese exclusive versions, collector's edition. So some there are a lot of Japanese only releases, like Millennium Edition, the Square Millennium Edition, which are exclusive to the Japan, I think. Please, somebody correct me on this one, because I've only seen the Japanese version of the Square Millennium Collection. So I got the Front Mission 3 and Final Fantasy Tactics, my some of my favorite SRPGs. Anyway, moving into more recent release is this one. So the Championship Edition, as you have known, there is the Japanese version has a different packaging, but has the controller, the Famicom controller included with this one. So there are so many things that are released here in Japan but was not released in the West. And if you're gonna visit Japan, you're gonna start collecting Japanese versions, I do recommend considering collecting the collector's edition, because they have so much here, like this one, belt collector. So belt action, or rather the beat 'em up collection. So they have so many collector's edition versions exclusive to Japan, and that's one of the things that you should really be looking for, or consider looking for, if you're into this, because they are cheap here. Well, not all of them are cheap, but when you do find them, especially on book offs, hard offs, they tend to be on the really cheap side. And I have seen the Bayonetta Trinity Masquerade Edition go for 3,600 yen, and surprisingly that's really cheap. So that's around 25 bucks for a collector's edition with the game. Really huge savings on that part. And with that, we're gonna be moving on to the number one, our number one, and this is something really important, and that's why I saved it on the last one, because fine print fine print warning labels on the video games that are written on the games themselves. On this is particularly for physical stores, and something you should really check out before you go ahead with the purchase. And it's this. So there is things written on here, like Kisu, it has they're either big or small. So do check out what Kisu means is scratches. So that would have something to do with the disc mode. This is mostly on disc based games. When it but when they circle small on this, it's most probably just very minor things. Sometimes it's almost invisible to the eye to be able to find this particular kisu. Then they would also have warnings on this for discoloration on the packaging, damage on the packaging, manuals missing, or an insert missing. So do use your Google Translate on this, or if you're not sure, do ask the store personnel, especially if they have a little bit of English. Some establishments on Tokyo actually have English speaking staff on there. Not it's becoming more common, but it's not that common, if you get what I mean. So this is really important when you're buying Japanese video games. I know Japanese video games are really well kept by the locals here, and most people have really been touting how much Japanese people take care of their video games, and I can attest to that most of them are really in really fine condition and really cheap to boot. But there are really some cases wherein there's a lot of damage on the packaging, and they would even sometimes, like just like this one, when I bought this copy of Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced, they actually wrote that it has a funky smell on here. And when I bought it, I was like trying to find the funky smell, but luckily maybe it was something that the assessor of the one who bought the game from the seller smelled during that time, so he just wrote that there's a funky smell. But it's really important to check it out, because one time I bought a Racer Wolverine, and I didn't read the fine print that the breakaway cable was not included. That's why it was really cheap. Luckily, I was able to go and have it not replaced, not reimbursed, but rather I traded it for another item, just added some more because it was much more expensive. And yeah, do be careful when buying, and do read the warning labels, because it's really important, because you might have a bad time if you do not really understand what you're buying. And they have been more strict on this, especially with the influx of foreigners buying more and more retro video games over the time. And that's it for our top 10. Thank you so much that you were able to be with me on this top 10 list on 10 things you should know before collecting Japanese video games. It's a lengthy video, and I do hope that you guys enjoyed the video and was able to gain some information, knowledge that might help you in your Japanese video game collecting. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope to see you guys on the next one. This geek is out of here.